The ayes have it. Senator Waters.
Thanks very much, Deputy President. I rise to take note of the response given by the Minister representing the Social Services Minister, Senator Scott Ryan, to my question about funding for important frontline domestic violence services. Now, it was somewhat disappointing that the Minister wasn't actually really able to answer the questions that I put to him, because this is not a new issue. I've been corresponding with the Minister for Social Services about this issue for more than 12 months, and indeed just yesterday the Senate passed a motion calling for direct funding for Rape and Domestic Violence Services Australia, given the potential funding cut that is hanging over their necks, if you like. So for a start, I want to point out it was disappointing that the government didn't have that information to hand, but they call it question time and not answer time for a reason. The important issue that I asked about, though, was the fact that we have an internationally renowned women-led specialist rape crisis phone organisation who at the moment deliver 1800RESPECT, funnelled through a contract by MHS. So what we have are the actual experts doing the work, but there's a middleman, if you like, which the government funds, MHS, which is a for-profit provider. Now, they didn't start off as a for-profit provider, of course, because they were privatised a few years ago. But currently we have a situation where rape and domestic violence crisis services, a phone call centre, is being managed by head contract by a for-profit provider. Now, the union has run a campaign saying that no one should profit from rape, and I'm fully behind that campaign. I think it's entirely inappropriate that there is a head contract that is making profit potentially off the back of these rape and domestic violence counselling services. Unfortunately, the Minister had no difficulty with that concept. I was quite shocked that he didn't have a problem with that concept, and of course used it as an opportunity to attack the Greens. Well, I think he'll find that most people think it is entirely inappropriate for there to be profit made off rape and domestic violence services. I would suggest that the Minister is in the minority if he doesn't have a problem with that. What we'd like to see is direct funding of Rape and Domestic Violence Services Australia, or RDVSA, who are the experts who can provide the appropriate support for women who ring that emergency DV and sexual assault helpline. At the moment, their subcontract is under review. It is by no means clear whether or not MHS, as the head contractor, will continue that subcontract. The government has effectively outsourced the decision to a private company. The government used to say, all right, MHS, you can deliver this service, but you must give the subcontract to RDVSA. However, they've now recently reneged on that condition. So the government is basically saying, we don't care who you give your contract to, you can decide that, we don't really give a damn, which I think is an extremely disappointing approach and response by this government, who have championed 1800RESPECT and who are right to so champion it. Don't then hamstring that very service by not dictating who is providing that valid service. So to cut a long story short, the experts should be delivering this valuable service because women need the appropriate support when they make a call, often in an emergency situation. If they are not getting the phone call answered by someone with relevant trauma counselling expertise, and the RDVSA counsellors have all got relevant expertise and often in excess of 10 years experience doing this, if women aren't getting that quality response when they make that call, if that first call is bungled, then they may never call again, and it may in fact be a life or death situation for that caller. That's why we've been saying how important it is to have actual specialists answering these calls, and it's why we're so concerned about this triage model which MHS have implemented with the consent of the government, whereby less specialised people are answering calls. They're answering them quickly, and then they decide whether or not to refer them to actually specialised counsellors. We don't think that's working, and there's been an awful lot of complaints made about that triage process, which is why we've called for an investigation into it. Unfortunately, the Minister didn't have the details about whether that would occur, but it's clearly warranted on the facts. There are enough people who are saying this triage process is not working for women, including the women themselves, and we just can't be dicing with people's very well-being and lives for a matter that is so important as a rape and domestic violence counselling phone support line. So I would urge the government to directly fund the actual experts who can help women when they call this rape and domestic violence service hotline.
Thank you.